Welcome to the Deep Dive. You send us sources, and we dig into them for the key insights.
And today we're looking at a source you sent in. It's a YouTube video.
Right, from the IELTS Advantage channel. It's called IELTS Speaking Band 8.5 Almost Perfect.
Yeah, and our mission here, it isn't just about, cracking the IELTS test.
No, it's broader than that.
Exactly. We want to unpack what makes spoken English really effective, using the feedback from this specific test as a kind of case study.
So it's about communication skills that apply way beyond just getting a score.
Precisely. Real-world communication.
Okay, let's start where the test starts. Part 1. These are the quicker, more personal questions, right?
Mm-hmm. In this case, it was about high school, favorite teacher, subjects, did they miss it, that sort of thing.
Then transport, too. I saw mentions of Dubai in their home country.
Yeah, public versus private transport, the popularity of cars, and then internet use, frequency, favorite sites, overuse.
Okay, and free time, weekends, even a perfect weather day.
Yeah.
Pretty standard stuff.
Pretty standard opening topics, yeah. And the examiner's first impression, very positive.
Oh, yeah. What are they like?
They said the candidates sounded natural, like they were just chatting with a friend.
That's often the goal, isn't it? To sound conversational.
It is. And interestingly, they noted that even though the test taker was probably nervous, which is normal, it didn't really hinder their fluency.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Did the examiner offer any advice on handling those nerves?
Yes, actually. Really practical advice. They suggested picturing yourself talking to a friend.
Like, literally visualize it.
Yeah, maybe imagine you're in a coffee shop, just having a relaxed chat. It's about trying to shift your mental state away from the test pressure.
Okay, I like that. It reframes the situation.
And tied into that was this analogy the examiner used, the MacBook Pro brain.
MacBook Pro Brain, what's that?
The idea is when you're stressed, your brain gets overloaded, right? Like a computer trying to run too many heavy applications.
Okay, yeah. Things slow down. You can't think clearly.
Exactly. So managing that stress, keeping that cognitive load down, allows your actual English abilities to shine through without interference.
Makes sense. Don't let the stress clog the system.
Pretty much.
All right, let's move on to part 2. This is the longer speaking turn, the monologue.
Right. You get a topic on a card and speak for about 2 minutes.
What did the feedback highlight here?
Well, there was one small thing. The examiner noticed a slight repetition. Something like, my friend came around, had a glass of wine.
And why did that happen?
The test taker apparently mentioned it was just a moment to, gather their thoughts. A thinking pause, essentially.
Okay, so how did the examiner view that? Is that a problem?
They seem to indicate that occasional repetition like that for thinking time is usually fine, understandable, but you wouldn't want it happening frequently. If it becomes a pattern, then it could start impacting your fluency score.
Got it. So once is okay, but don't make a habit of it.
Exactly. And they offered a useful tip for part 2 to maybe help avoid needing those pauses too much.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
Prepare more than just the bullet points on the card. Think of maybe 3 or 4 extra things you could talk about related to the topic.
Like backup ideas.
Yeah. Could be your feelings about it, how it connects to the past or future, specific examples, maybe a little story.
So you have more in your mental toolkit if you start running out of things to say for the main prompts.
Precisely. Gives you more flexibility and helps maintain fluency.
Smart.
Yeah.
Okay, then part 3 arrives, the discussion part. More abstract questions here.
Yeah, usually digging deeper into the themes from part 2, but often more complex, more general ideas.
And how did the test taker handle this?
Well, one interesting point was that even when a question came up that they didn't seem to know a lot about, they still gave it a shot. They attempted an answer rather than just saying, I don't know.
And the examiners like that.
Yes, they specifically pointed that out as a good strategy.
Which really underlines the point that this is an English test, right? Not a knowledge quiz.
Absolutely. It's not an IQ test. They want to see if you can express ideas, discuss topics, use the language, even if the topic itself is a bit unfamiliar. Showing you can communicate is the key.
Good reminder. Okay, let's shift focus to the specific scoring criteria. Pronunciation first.
Right. 2 key aspects here. First, basic clarity. Can you be understood easily?
And second.
Second is the more advanced features, things like intonation, the rise and fall of your voice, stress, rhythm, the musicality, you could say.
And the feedback on clarity for this candidate. The video mentioned an Indian accent specifically.
Yeah, and the examiner was really clear on this. Having an accent is totally fine. It's not penalized. The only thing that matters is whether your speech is clear and understandable.
So for this person, clarity was.
No problem at all. Perfectly clear, according to the examiner.
That's great, but was there any advice related to pronunciation?
Yes, link back to nervousness again.
How so?
Sometimes when nervous, people might speak too quietly or kind of mumble, almost speak inside their mouth, maybe subconsciously trying not to make mistakes visible.
Right, they clam up a bit.
Exactly. So the advice was simple. Project your voice. Imagine you're speaking clearly to someone maybe 10 feet away.
Just have the confidence to be heard properly.
And the other point was about intonation.
Ah, yes, the musicality. What about it?
Well, nervousness can sometimes make your intonation flatten out. You lose that natural up and down melody that conveys meaning and emotion.
So you might sound a bit monotonous.
Yeah, potentially. Which leads to a good practice tip they mention.
What's that?
Record yourself speaking. It's a great way to actually hear if your intonation sounds natural or if it gets a bit flat when you're focused or nervous.
Good idea. Hear yourself as others hear you. Okay, what about coherence and fluency?
Coherence first, basically, did you answer the question you were asked? Did your ideas connect logically?
And for this candidate.
The examiner said they did this well. Answers were relevant and easy to follow.
Okay. And fluency. We touched on the repetition in part 2.
Right. And that was really the only slight blip mentioned regarding fluency. Importantly, because it seemed to be a one-off pause for thought, it wasn't significant enough to pull the score down.
So fluency isn't just about nonstop talking. Pausing to think is allowed.
Absolutely. Pausing to think of ideas is perfectly normal and natural.
Mm-hmm.
It's different from pausing because you're constantly struggling to find the right words or construct a sentence grammatically.
Ah, okay. That's a crucial distinction. Thinking pauses versus language struggle pauses.
Exactly. The examiner recognized the difference.
All right, next up, grammar. What do they look for here?
Two main things again, range and accuracy.
Range meaning.
Using a variety of grammatical structures correctly, simple sentences, complex sentences, different tenses, conditionals, passive voice, etc.
And accuracy.
Pretty straightforward. How many errors do you make? Are they minor slips or systematic errors that impede understanding?
And the feedback on this test taker's grammar.
Generally very positive, good range demonstrated, only occasional minor slips.
Any examples?
The examiner mentioned something like saying, my friend and I went to a cinema, instead of maybe to the cinema. Very small things.
Things that native speakers might even slip up on sometimes.
Potentially, yeah. And crucially, these minor slips didn't make it hard to understand their meaning at all.
Good, and I bet nervousness came up again here.
You bet. The examiner reiterated that stress can definitely cause more grammatical errors than you might make in a relaxed conversation. That MacBook Pro brain effect again.
Right, it impacts everything. Okay, finally, vocabulary. Lexical resource, as they call it.
Yep. Again, assessed for accuracy using the right words and range, using varied and precise vocabulary, including less common words or idioms appropriately.
So how did this candidate fare?
Accuracy was good. No real issues with using words incorrectly.
But. There sounds like a but.
Well, the examiner felt they maybe played it safe a little.
Played it safe, meaning?
Meaning they used accurate vocabulary, but perhaps didn't stretch themselves to use more sophisticated or varied language that they might actually know. They stuck to more common words.
Ah, interesting. So not using wrong words, just maybe not showcasing the full extent of their vocabulary.
Exactly. And this is an interesting point because, some learners go the other way. They try to force in really complex words, sometimes inappropriately, and it sounds unnatural.
Right. Finding that balance is key. Use varied vocabulary, but use it naturally and accurately.
That's the sweet spot. So because of this playing it safe, the examiner suggested this area could potentially be improved for an even higher score.
Okay, so let's pull it all together. What was the overall assessment? Band 8.5 was the score, but what potential did the examiner see?
Well, they actually thought that on the day, the test taker's pronunciation and fluency were likely at a band 9 level, the highest possible.
Wow, okay.
For grammar, also potential for band 9, but acknowledging that test day nerves might cause enough slips to bring it down to an 8.
Still very high. And vocabulary.
Assessed at band 8, primarily because of that playing it safe factor we just discussed.
Yeah.
But clear potential to push that higher by incorporating more varied language.
So overall, a really strong performance, with the examiner clearly believing this person is capable of top-tier scores.
Definitely. A very positive and encouraging assessment overall.
So wrapping this deep dive up, what are the key things you, our listener, should take away from this?
I think it really highlights that effective speaking, whether for a test or just life, isn't purely about grammatical perfection or super complex
To
words.
more holistic.
Yeah, it's about clarity, first and foremost, being understood. It's about expressing yourself naturally, managing those inevitable nerves, and yes, continuously working on expanding your vocabulary, but in a way that feels authentic.
Skills that are valuable way beyond any exam room.
Absolutely. In meetings, presentations, social situations, everything.
So here's a final thought for you to consider. How might consciously applying some of these ideas, like focusing on being clear, more than being complex, practicing that relaxed friend in a coffee shop delivery, maybe actively noting down and trying out new words naturally, how could that enhance communication in your everyday life, not just for formal assessments?
Yeah, take a moment to think about your own style. Where could applying these insights make a difference for you?